Appreciate you streaming in here on a Football Friday. It's 365 with Mac and Mac. You got three Philly guys on the air right now. McDonald, McMullen, and from the NFL Network and NFL.com, a Philly guy through and through, Mike Garafolo. Mike, how ticked off were you yesterday that Howie didn't tell you about Matt Patricia ahead of time?
Seems like that's kind of been lurking for a couple of months now.
It's going to be linebackers coach. Yeah. What do you think of that, Mike? Because obviously Darius Slay has not been shy to express in the past that he did not have the best relationship with Matt Patricia. It's kind of a bold move from that perspective from Nick Sirianni.
Yeah. Well, organizationally, I do know that this is a team that loves to bring in former GMs when they can, like Howie's done that. Dave Caldwell, formerly of the Jaguars, currently on staff. So sometimes guys who get to that level and it doesn't quite work out can come in and can have a different kind of perspective. Sometimes you learn from your mistakes. You hope that. I mean, it's just the whole Patricia offensive coordinator thing was as weird as Juan Castillo years ago taking that job. I don't quite know what Belichick was thinking other than he thinks he's smarter than everybody else.
Oh, yeah.
That didn't quite work out. This one feels at least more natural to me. So let's see how it goes.
And we discussed this earlier in the show. Love your read on it. One of the potential downsides is he's had the success that he has a Super Bowl winning defense coordinator. Eagles have a rookie defensive coordinator, and Sean Desai is filling some pretty big shoes that Gannon did. If you look at it analytically, number 2 defense overall, number 1 defense against the pass, 70 some odd sacks. Good luck getting that again. He's stepping into a tough spot to begin with. Now does Matt Patricia looking over his shoulder make it even more difficult for Desai?
I mean, I wouldn't think so. I mean, Patricia's relationship with players has been questioned, certainly when he got to Detroit. I mean, I remember they hadn't even played their first game. And I remember us talking about it on Good Morning Football Weekend when we had that show before their first game. And I said, I heard that these players are mentally and physically exhausted coming out of training camp. And that's really hard to do.
In this day and era,
to get these guys to beat them down that much, but they did it. But I never heard anything with regard to other coaches and any friction there. So I would think from a professional standpoint, even last year when things weren't working out between Mac Jones and Matt Patricia, there was still a good working relationship with the staff up there. So I would think that that should continue, and he wouldn't undermine anybody. But who knows? I mean, sometimes, who knows?
By the way, Mike, that's an interesting tidbit because obviously, he's wearing players down. He's coming to Nick Sirianni's staff. It's Club Sirianni, right? There's 31 teams already in off-season work, not the Eagles. They kicked it back a week. Mm-hmm. They had great success from a health standpoint, doing things the way they did them. So it's going to be interesting to see that dichotomy. Yeah. But we got to talk about Jalen Hurts, number 1.
Let's do it.
Yeah. 12 months, Mike. I mean, last year at this time, look, it was pretty evident that the Eagles didn't like the quarterback class. Nobody liked the quarterback class. So Howie kind of kicked back to, 1 pick to the next year, just as that security blanket. They couldn't get Russell Wilson to consider Philadelphia. They couldn't get Deshaun Watson to consider Philadelphia. 12 months later, $255 million, 179 guaranteed. Have you ever seen anything like this? This is amazing, the development from year 2 to year 3.
Yeah, from the beginning, it's weird because you bring in a guy with a second-round pick that you think is going to be some kind of gadget player or a guy that can provide value at the backup position so you don't have to pay a veteran. Oh. And then it gets into the starter's head a little bit, along with some other things that causes his downfall. And then, Jalen Hurts is kind of the guy thrust into the job, but you could tell they're still not sold on it. I mean, the guy that they brought in, and Howie, it's turned out great for Howie and the Eagles. It has, right? But if you can go back in time and have that conversation with them at the point, you almost want to say to them, if you don't believe this guy could ever be your starter, don't take him right here. I mean, I know in your head you're thinking second round, well, our quarterback will be fine. He won't be treated that way. But he got into that role in large part because of where you took him. So you go from that to not quite having the faith in him to not explore other options, right? To, getting this huge extension. Yeah, it's been quite the ride for Jalen Hurts. And I don't think this will change him. If the Deshaun Watson stuff hanging over his head, the fact that he really wasn't the guy coming in and Carson Wentz was at the time, if all that stuff didn't get into his head, I can't imagine a big contract will. So I think Jalen Hurts going to continue to ascend here. Where is the ceiling? And now with a full season of film in which he was incredibly successful, can they find some things defensively to kind of start to short circuit him? The one thing that I know that I heard last year was his ability to understand things, to say, hey, they're trying to do this to us, we should do this. He had some of that input too. So their counters, he's got counters for them ready to go to.
I need your take on this. The transition between Shane Steichen and Brian Johnson. We know he's got a long-standing relationship with the quarterbacks since he was a kid, but he's been his quarterback coach the last couple of years.
Yeah.
John and I both appreciate the ability of Shane Steichen to call plays. He's just really good at it from the time Sirianni passed on that responsibility. Transition, seamless, going to take some time, rocky road. Give me your best guess scenario as to how Brian Johnson hits the ground running as the play call for the Eagles next year.
Yeah, I know that there's confidence in him from the Eagles standpoint, so we don't quite know. I mean, he had input, certainly the week leading up, obviously, but also the day of the game. So they're confident with his feedback and his thoughts that he had on the fly during the game, that'll translate into his play calling as well. But you're right. I mean, I know that there was at one point, especially in the second half, when they weren't really stepping on some throats early, some folks thought, well, Steichen could be a better player. I thought he was a fantastic play caller. Yeah, even back to his time with the Chargers, which I was stunned that the Chargers didn't retain him when they did, but Brandon Staley wanted Joe Lombardi, who was his buddy for a long period of time. So the Eagles were fortunate to have Shane Steichen for a couple of years. Yeah, it's you don't know till you're in that chair, till you got that headset. But I know that there's confidence in him, and I know that there's confidence in Kevin Patullo. I feel like Kevin doesn't get enough credit for what he does.
No. He's Nick's guy. He's Nick's consigliere, is what I describe him as. Mike.
Yeah, and he got an elevation yesterday.
Got the associate head coach.
Yeah. So it's been a team effort, despite the fact that Shane Steichen is the one calling the plays. So they hope that communication will continue.
All right, Mike Garafolo, you've been around this team for a long time. You know Howie Roseman. I've considered changing the name of this show to Bijan 365 as we go through the draft process. All Eagles fans, not all, but a lot of people want Bijan Robinson. Howie's not taking a running back at number 10, is he?
It would fly in the face of it would fly in the face of it would run counter to their philosophy based on conversations that I've had with Eagles folks over the last couple of years regarding other teams putting all their eggs, or not all their eggs, significant eggs in running back baskets.
Okay.
And look, I mean, Miles Sanders became a free agent. $6 million a year is not really, anything that's going to blow away a budget or a salary cap.
Yeah.
They weren't there, right? So if you're not going to pay $6 million for Miles Sanders, are you now going to commit a draft pick to Bijan Robinson, knowing that in a couple of years you're paying 15, 16, 7, whatever it is by that point, by the time you're extending him? It would run counter to everything that I have picked up regarding their philosophy of what you do at the running back position.
Fair enough, and I agree with both you guys. I think he's a unique player, and how he used that word unique, but I think he was referring to other players, not Bijan Robinson. Where do you think they'll take a running back? Do you think they'll take a running back? As of right now, they got two picks in the first, second, third, and then not again till the seventh. Are they going to make a big deal about a running back they pick in the seventh round, or are they going to use one of those picks in the first 3 rounds to take a running back if it's not going to be Bijan Robinson?
Yeah, no, there are guys to be had there. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs is talked about as a I don't want to say a 1A, but he's possibly in the first round as well, the kid from Alabama. So, maybe if as we talk this through, well, it's not really our first round pick because we use the early first round pick on a non-running back. So maybe we use the second first round pick on a running back at that point. But second round seems to have been the jumping off point for the Eagles over the years with Howie in the building to take a running back. So I would say, once you start to get there, then it's okay. This is enough value and enough of you're out of that early range where you've got to take the premier positions with your first round pick. So I would say, right around there would make sense to me if they do add a running back.
League as a whole, Mike, I think through this most of the process, the thought has been 4 quarterbacks are going to go in those first 9 picks, and that makes it better for the Eagles because then it starts pushing some of the position players down the board. Lately, it's been like, well, Houston, Nick says he might not take a quarterback, and all of a sudden, there's some teams that maybe start going in a different direction. Buying any of that hype, or is that just silly season? Guys trying to create smoke screens.
Yeah, I'm skeptical that all 4 are going in the top 10. I am. I think it winds up being 3. And which one doesn't? I've heard mixed reviews on whether that's Will Levis or Anthony Richardson. I think the Colts are a big team when it comes to Levis because I've heard it both ways, that they like him and that they don't like him. So if he gets by 4, possible slide could be on there. And then especially if they wind up taking Richardson instead. So, I think you're looking at 3. Maybe even 2 only in the top 10. I mean, we'll see. But I would, if you're asking me right now, I would say 3 of those 4 wind up going. And then the other guy that's interesting that also is a factor, I think, is Jalen Carter, because I don't think Seattle takes him at 5. Detroit, not sure. 7, that's the Raiders. 8, the Falcons. Now, that would be close to where he went to college. And I know a lot of folks, talent evaluators, general managers, if a guy's got flags or problems or issues or whatever you want to call them, having him near where he played, where he knows a lot of people, not necessarily a good thing. So now I think, 8 could be off the board as well. 9, they've got other needs with the Chicago Bears. Does Howie take him? It's in there.
That he gave the shout out to Dom yesterday, Dom DeSandro. They said as simple as if Dom does his homework, and they say, because a lot of, talking to Mark Dominic on his conference call earlier this week, Mike, he's saying Howie might move up, man. He doesn't have to worry about the quarterback. Remember, he had been going through this process of keeping the safety net in case Jalen Hurts didn't develop and adding this extra draft capital just in case he needed a quarterback. He doesn't need a quarterback now. Does he all of a sudden seize the moment? Yeah. It might be Tyree Wilson, might be Jalen Carter, Will Anderson probably out of reach, but trade up.
Yeah, well, I'm starting to hear about Anderson that a lot of people think he doesn't fit their scheme, which I think is crazy. He's just a phenomenal football player, so find a way for him to fit your scheme. Yeah. And as for Tyree Wilson, by the way, hadn't worked out. I mean, and not that I had this conversation with a personnel guy yesterday. I said, I know you don't care about the workout. He says, yeah, no, we don't, like, the workout itself doesn't matter. But the fact that the kid can't work out, when is he going to be ready? So now that could be a huge factor for him as he potentially starts to slide down a little bit.
By the way, remember, you heard it here first. I'll go on the record with this. If Jalen Carter gets to number 9, the Bears are going to take him. Okay. You can say they have other needs. No. Matt Eberflus, defensive coach. Oh, if he's there, he's going to take a difference maker, and it's going to tick Eagle fans off that he gets all the way down to 9 and then gets snacked up the pick before the Eagles have the chance to get him.
Could very well be. Would make a lot of sense. I'm with you. I was just painting a scenario where potentially he gets
cut down to the Eagles. Yeah, I think the Bears at a minimum take him at 9. All right, so give us your overall grade of this draft. We certainly talk about from number 1 down all the way through, and less important everything else. But then you bring them all together and you just grade the draft. We know the picks the Eagles have now. They got more picks next year, which could play into this year's draft. But everybody wants to know how much better are we going to come out after the draft is over. That's what we're going to have as a conversation on Saturday night.
Yeah.
How good, bad, or indifferent is this whole draft group of players in 2022?
Yeah. Now, obviously, this is not me studying the tape. This is me talking to the people who do.
Right.
But the consensus seems to be it's just okay, right? Like, it's not the worst you've seen. and it's certainly not the best that you've seen. It also depends at the position that you're talking about. Daniel Jeremiah has long said this is the best crop of tight ends he's seen in a long time. So if you have a need there, you're feeling good about it. So I would say this, toward the back end of the first round, two guys said it to me, one GM and one personnel guy, in different words, but the sentiment was the same. These mock drafts that you've got, right? Like the first 20 picks. Okay, these are okay, not in the right order, obviously, but like, that's that guy was projected about there, maybe a little bit of a side. Once you get into the 20s, they're saying that you're going to hear guys that were projected as like third round picks being taken there, and you get one or two of those every year, but it sounds like there could be a good handful of those guys in that the mock draft exercise on the back end of the first round, because it's so flat once you get there from their perspective. It's this plateau through the second and potentially third round. So you may see some guys that other teams have valued a lot higher than these mock drafts are projecting. Mike,
I know you got to run, but I want to get this one in. I kind of tried to get Howie to talk about, but he wouldn't, obviously, at the pre-draft press conference. A lot of change in the Eagles scouting department from, this year to last, and even dating back to before. Gave out the assistant GM tags for the first time, gave it out to an analytics guy, Alec Halaby, a football compliance guy, John Ferrari. Who's number two in the scouting staff? Who's Andy Weidel? Who's Joe Douglas? Why does Howie, because he gets it, he hears he's not a football guy. Yeah. And, if that's an Andy pick, if that's a Joe pick, does that still bother him?
Does that still bother him?
Yeah.
No, I don't think it listen, Howie, he doesn't have an ego, right? Now, everybody likes hearing good things, right?
Yeah.
And I know he likes hearing good things. And when he was getting beat up a couple of years ago, that bothered him for sure. But I don't think he sits there and overrules guys like sometimes you'll hear about and see in this league, all the way up to ownership, by the way. I mean, sometimes you hear it from ownership, and I know that was something that was being kicked around with Jeffrey Lurie, and Jeffrey has had influence over the year on some picks.
3 picks. They all worked out. Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata. I forget the third one. Remember when Jeffrey said that? Only 3, and they were all great.
They're great.
They were all great.
Yeah. What was the oh my God, I'm blanking on his name already. God, it was just the receiver from Stanford.
JJ
Arcega-Whiteside. Yeah. I heard that Jeffrey liked JJ.
He left that out when he was recapping the picks that he had a lot of influence over.
What was the question again? Who's number 2?
No, Howie's number 2.
He's leaning on a lot of people. They've had a lot of people move elsewhere and a lot of moving parts, and I think they have done a nice job of, with all these people moving, whether it's Andrew Berry or Catherine Raish, who's left as well. I mean, with all these moving parts, they seem to have done a nice job of at least keeping a cohesive staff and the ability to assemble talent. So I don't know how to answer that, to be honest with you.
Fair enough. Then I'll make your last one even easier. Starting Thursday, I'm guessing late lunch, somewhere thereabouts. You got to get a meal in you before the draft actually gets underway. Where is that meal taking place, and where will you be Saturday night when the draft is all over and done with? What does the itinerary look like for Mike Garafolo between midday Thursday and Saturday night?
Well, we're going to be on the air from Mount Laurel at NFL Films at 1:00. It's we don't get to use that studio too often anymore. We used to do Good Morning Football Weekend out of there. So we're excited about that. It's the 2 days of the year we get to do it. Thursday, 1:00, NFL Network. Friday, 1:00, NFL Network. Thursday, we'll be looking forward to round 1, obviously. Friday, we'll be recapping round 1, looking forward to round 2. And also on Thursday night, NFL Plus, which if you haven't subscribed, definitely subscribe to that. We've got an alternate broadcast to the main broadcast. Rhett Lewis will be hosting. Mark Ross, the former Eagles executive and Giants as well, will be with us. Cynthia Freeland, our analytics expert. Yours truly, I will be playing the role of information guy. It's going to be kind of a mock draft room is the way that they're doing it. Mark Ross will be the executive, Cynthia with the analytics. And we're going to kind of, instead of the whole show of the draft, because the way we're playing it, make a pick. We'll talk about it for 30 seconds, and then we'll kick it forward. Kind of the whole night, kind of look forward. Hey, what do we think from this next pick and moving on? And how would you do this if you were in the room and all that stuff? So if you're interested in that, we'll be on NFL Plus. Keep us up and keep the main broadcast up. Watch it all.
Very
I
nice.
like it.
That's why we have
Alternate
TVs
broadcast.
TVs and
like
tablets.
Yeah.
We'll have you up on the tablet, Mikey G. And if you need someone to drop by and drop you off a hoagie or something like that, I'm about 3 miles away from the studio in Mount Laurel. So drop me a text, say, Jody, I need a roast beef and cheese. I'll get it to you, all right?
Attaboy. Love it, Jody. Thank you for that.
Mike, thanks, buddy. No, thank you for jumping on with us. Have a great time Thursday and Friday. We'll be keeping you on the tablet as well. Appreciate you jumping on our tablet with us today.
You got it, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Garafolo, NFL Network. And to be honest with you, I just fell into that last question. I just really was kind of inquisitive as to what he was doing.
Yeah, Mount Laurel. I didn't even know they
promo for what he's going to be doing, and he's a matter of minutes from my house.
I don't. Obviously, I'm not paying that much attention to broadcast. I always say so, but I didn't know. It was interesting. I thought Mike would be. I never thought of that before, because in studio would mean Los Angeles, and obviously he's a local guy. So yeah, Mount Laurel. I forgot. They're never in Mount Laurel anymore.
Mount Laurel studio for broadcasting on Thursday and Friday for the NFL Network. But you got to have NFL Plus if you want to catch Garafolo. All right, Johnny Mac coming back. We still got a solid 15 minutes left to go here on Birds 365. So stay with us.